Uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh. Have you guys met Charlie, speaking of which? This is Charlie. Here we go. Oh, he's so cute. He's just the cutest. And this is him when we adopted him. I'm not sure if you guys have seen him. I don't think you've seen this picture. This is Lynn and Charlie when we got him. Oh, he's so cute. Yeah, yeah. He is a really, really smart doggy. The weather has been so hard this year. It's still burning most of the United States is still burning. That I am curious about the winter. At the same time, my family, Lynn and I, want to move to maybe, not sure, Bend, Oregon or something like that, somewhere green. So I'm curious. Let's go check it out and learn about it together, okay? Let me know what you guys are excited about. All right, let's learn together.
This upcoming winter season is going to be really interesting because right now, all around the globe, there are major weather pattern changes going on, and these changes are going to directly affect our winter here in the US. Arctic blasts, blizzards, and even severe weather are all on the table. But the interesting part is where these things are going to happen. In this video, I'm going to tell you all about that and what you can expect in your own backyard. So you've probably heard about it by now, but El Nino is ramping up down here in the Pacific Ocean. This pretty much just means that the waters are getting much warmer than usual, and since this is such a big body of water, its temperature fluctuations have major impacts on the weather worldwide. For the past 3 winters, we've been in a La Nina, which is when those Pacific waters are actually colder than usual. So as we head into our first El Nino in quite a while, we're expecting some big changes. During a typical El Nino winter, we usually see an extended Pacific jet stream, and this brings a lot of storms into the south. We also tend to see the polar jet stream cut across the Great Lakes, allowing for much warmer than average air to build up underneath it in western Canada and through the northern US. At the same time, things get a lot wetter and somewhat colder down here in the south thanks to all the storminess. And in between all those areas, we usually end up a bit drier than normal, but things fluctuate a lot here. But here's the thing, what I just showed you was a typical end up.
Oh my goodness. Hey Darren, how you doing, buddy? I'm doing good, bud. So I live in San Diego, which is right here, and I live pretty close to the water, which is great to have because when you're close to the water, during the hot days, the ocean kind of acts like a balance, you know. During the hot days, the ocean cools down that area, and during cold days, the ocean warms up that area. So the ocean is a really nice place to be next to. But as you can see, the more inland you go, the less of that, I don't know what to call it, protection you have. And then Lynn and I are thinking about moving. And we were thinking about staying somewhere around here, near Oregon, Seattle, maybe somewhere there. But this is a learning experience. I have some friends in Texas right now. They're hitting some crazy temperatures. I have some friends around Utah and Idaho. They're hitting some crazy temperatures. Where do you guys live? Let me know what kind of stuff you've been noticing in the last few years, because I feel like the weather has been getting crazy. Yeah, the winters don't feel like regular winters anymore.
A bit drier than normal, but things fluctuate a lot here. But here's the thing, what I just showed you was a typical El Nino, and what we're about to experience is anything but a typical El Nino. You see, here's where we are right now with sea surface temperatures in the Pacific, and here are all the specific places that we monitor when determining the intensity of an El Nino. You can see very clearly that we are warmer than average across the board, and you can also see here the long history of these waters being colder than average, but more recently things have actually kind of flatlined. And if the warming stopped here, we'd be looking at only a weak to moderate El Nino for this winter, which would make a big difference in the overall USA forecast. But is the warming gonna stop here? Well, let's take a look at some forecast models. Here's the latest projection from the CFS model. As you can see, just a few weeks from now, we do expect these waters to start warming significantly once again. And by around October, we're probably gonna be in at least a moderate to strong El Nino. So what exactly is the impact here in the US when there's a strong El Nino versus a weak El Nino in the winter? Well, as far as temperatures go, with a weak El Nino, we would expect to see much colder than average temperatures for a lot of the
Okay. Weak El Nino on the top, moderate El Nino, strong El Nino. Why is moderate more blue? That's the part I don't understand, right? And the strong, it has more heat in the north. See, from my understanding, I'm glad I'm watching this because I obviously don't know shit. From my understanding, if there was a moderate El Nino, you would have more red here, just a little bit. A moderate, this would be more hot, and strong would be all in the bottom. So it's weird because it's affecting more like Canada than the southern United States. That's so interesting.
East Coast due to that polar
So
jet making its
counterintuitive.
way farther south. But with a stronger El Nino, things are completely flipped. We get colder in the west and somewhat warmer in the east. But even dialing it down this much does not tell the whole story. Sure, it looks like we're going to have a moderate to strong El Nino, and we're going to have a lot of historical data to back up what that actually means for us, but there is no historical data whatsoever for this next big part of the equation that we have to figure out. Right now, the Atlantic Ocean is hotter than it's ever been before. And not only will that have
That's
implications on this hurricane season, but these warm waters have the ability to feed all storms, even snowstorms, especially east of the Mississippi River. Most of our bigger storms rely on warm, moist air from either the Gulf of Mexico or the Atlantic.
Is it me or just starting to get a little scary? Because it seems like it's literally creating a perfect storm.
To survive. And the warmer and more moist they are, the bigger the storms can potentially be. If we get into a situation this winter where we have abundant cold air and the sea surface temperatures are still this high, we're going to have a very active stretch of big time snowstorms. But once again, we haven't really ever seen an El Nino winter where the Atlantic was so warm, so we have nothing to compare this against. Now, we're still
Cannot cause hurricanes near Florida again, because when the Atlantic is warm, you get a crazy hurricane season. So imagine if you have winter hurricanes. I guess those are just snowstorms, but holy crap.
still quite a ways away from winter, and there's only so much you can predict at this point.
scary.
But I do have a preliminary and very early winter outlook for you. First of all, in general, I think temperatures are going to follow a pattern consistent with the strong El Ninos of the past. It's going to be much warmer than usual in Western Canada, and a lot of that warmth will dip down into the central U.S. as well. In the south, due to the amplified storm track, things are more than likely going to be quite a bit colder than
So it's going to be completely the opposites. Like California, Southern California, and San Diego, and Texas, and all other southern states are going to be cold, while Canada is hot during winter.
usual. And despite the record
my
warm sea
God.
surface temperatures in the Atlantic, I think a lot of those southern storms are going to travel parallel to the East Coast, and that's going to bring down much colder air on a more regular basis to the eastern states. And everyone else in between can pretty much expect mostly average or typical seasonal temperature changes and swings this winter. Now that's a
Gonna
pretty
melt all
useful
that snow in the
forecast for
winter.
sure, but I have an even more bold prediction for you right now. Based on everything we've learned today, I think I have an idea as to where our next Big Daddy snowstorm is going to be. What in the world is a Big Daddy snowstorm, you ask? Well, just
I want to know if that's a real weather term, because weather meteorologists have some weird terms. Please someone look me up. Is a Big Daddy storm a real thing?
about every year, somewhere in the
in
U.S.,
UK?
there's a snowstorm that's quite memorable for the people it
Big
impacts.
Daddy.
You've probably heard people talk about the blizzard of this year or that year. Or you've heard somebody say, I
me a
remember
favor,
back in the old
Google it.
days
I
during
wanna
the
see if
great
that's a real
snowstorm
thing.
of
Big Daddy
1980
storm.
whatever. It's those kinds of storms that I
Actually, don't Google it. That sounds like a porno name. Do not Google Big Daddy Storm, because we know that there was an actress called Stormy Daniels, right? So it's not a far-fetched idea that there's someone called Big Daddy Storm, and I don't know how old some of you guys are, so do not Google that. Oh my God.
refer to as Big Daddy snowstorm.
Stop saying it.
I think there's a good chance we're going to get one this year, and I've got a map showing you where it's most likely to happen. First off, here's the general 2% likelihood area. It's big because the probability is small. Now,
Daddy
here's the fun stuff. The dark blue represents where I think we have a 5% chance of seeing a Big Daddy snowstorm this winter. The pink is going to represent a 10% chance, and the red is actually going to be a 15% chance. I think that at some point this winter, a large area of cold air is going to be in place as one of those El Nino enhanced southern storms starts tracking north. When that happens, someone is going to get a heaping helping of snow. Now, of course, this is a
Who lives in these areas? Who lives in near New York, Boston, Chicago, Illinois, in that area? Who, if you actually live here, if you don't know what this means, you're gonna get so much snow, supposedly because of the Big Daddy, that you're not going to be able to move around for like a week or two. How does this make you feel is what I want to know.
El Nino enhanced southern storm starts tracking north. When that happens, someone is
snow.
going to get a heaping helping of snow. Now, of course, this is a wildly early
I love
prediction
snow on
to make,
vacation.
and it's
I don't like
mostly
living
just
in it.
for fun, but go ahead and hold me accountable. If you want to come back to this video in March or April of 2024 and let me know
Let's
how I
take
did
it
in
up,
the
guys.
comments, I would love that. The reason I have any shred of confidence here is because El Nino winters and Big Daddy snowstorms are no strangers. A lot of you probably remember the January blizzard of 2016, which dumped up to 3 feet of snow across the mid-Atlantic and caused over $500 million in damage. That storm occurred during the 2014 to 2016 El Nino
Originator says he's in the pink. Mustang goes is in the pink of Ohio. Oh wow, I remember playing Midtown Madness in Chicago. I'll keep reading. It's gonna be crazy though.
event, which is regarded as one of the strongest El Ninos in recorded history. Another strong El Nino occurred in 1997 and 1998, and there was a ton of big winter storms during this time period, including the January 1998 North American ice storm, which actually left 4 million people without power and caused $7 billion in damage. And the list really goes on. And it's also important to
see
note
this
that
car?
most of these El Nino winters were also quite active in terms of severe weather. Due to that increased southern storm track and large temperature swings, severe weather outbreaks are unfortunately something that we're certainly going to be dealing with this winter.
I'm starting to think that God is trying to kill Florida. I think if there's a God, they're either trying to sink Florida or just take it off the map. Florida just gets the worst of everything. I don't know why. The worst storms, the worst flooding, the worst crazies. I think it takes guts to live in Florida. It definitely takes guts to move to Florida.
So if you're even slightly interested in looking at the radar, getting severe weather warnings, or looking at satellite, or watching Storm Chaser live feeds, or
Yeah.
any of that, click the link in the
It's the National Weather Center, sorry. Just look up National Weather Services. It's weather.gov. You can find everything you want on it. All these data apps and data centers, or even like, was it surfline.com, which I used to use for surf information, all of them get their information from weather.gov. So just use those. You don't have to pay anything.
description right now to download Radar Omega for iOS or Android. I
Yeah.
promise y'all you're not going to regret it. And you're also not going to regret subscribing to this channel, which you should do right now, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye. Ooh.
All right, guys, give him a subscribe. He definitely educated me. I didn't know anything about the El Niños. The video is called "The Winter is Going to Be Very Different." Ryan Hall, y'all, and let's keep him. Let's see if he was right. Yeah. I honestly didn't know what was going to happen this winter. I knew an El Nino was coming, but I did not realize that Canada's going to be burning and southern United States is going to be freezing.